Hello everyone and welcome again. My name is Tom Nelson and this is video lesson number 4 out of 5 in the video lesson series on understanding inflammation. So now we're going to learn how chronic inflammation causes weight gain. Research has repeatedly linked chronic inflammation to a number of common dietary and lifestyle factors, especially processed foods, fast foods, and junk food. Making changes in these practices can reduce inflammation in your body. It can lower your risk for degenerative diseases, and it can help your body shed excess weight. When chronic inflammation occurs, and it continues long-term, if it's not resolved, it can continue to rage on even after the threat has been resolved. Chronic inflammation is often referred to as systemic inflammation because it puts your body in an emergency state, a continuous long-term state of war. It can lead to serious health issues, and the immune cells, the white cells, will begin to attack healthy cells and tissues and organs, and it can produce even more inflammation than that can occur throughout the body. So it can impair functions throughout your body, including your cardiovascular health, your cognitive function, your ability to think, your digestive system, metabolism, hormone levels, and much, much more. So when these inflammatory cells are present, the body, over an extended period of time, it can promote the buildup of dangerous plaque in your arteries. As the plaque continues to build up, it increases the risk for a heart attack or a stroke. So the inflammatory cells in the brain may lead to Alzheimer's disease and even to dementia. High levels of inflammatory markers have been associated with depression. So chronic inflammation also damages the lining of your intestines. It can lead to a condition called leaky gut syndrome or intestinal permeability. What it means is that due to a bad diet, the cells that make up the lining of the intestine are starved, and because they're weakened, they lose their bond one to another, and so the lining of the intestines will begin to leak, and things from inside the intestines, which normally you would hope to keep there, things like bacteria, viruses, pathogens, undigested food, and even fecal matter, can now move through that intestinal wall into the tissue area that surrounds it. And the serious part of that is that then blood vessels in those areas will pick it up, and it'll distribute it throughout the tissues of the entire body. And that's going to result in massive amounts of inflammation. So you can see that it's going to be serious and very, very important that the leaky gut syndrome is resolved while you're doing this process of stopping inflammation. So besides the digestive issues that it causes, that leaky gut syndrome will allow that undigested food, which causes allergies, those pathogens, fecal matter, and other unwanted substances, will leak into your intestinal cavity, be distributed throughout your body, and it will seriously disrupt many bodily processes and vital organs. So inflammation is involved in tumor growth. Many cancerous tumors begin at sites of chronic irritation or inflammation. So now let's talk about inflammation and weight gain. Inflammation affects your body weight in numerous ways. When the immune system detects a threat, the body releases a substance called cytokines, which activate the body's immune response. The cytokines are pro-inflammatory. That means they will start inflammation, and they also interfere with your body's insulin response. Insulin resistance causes the pancreas to release more insulin, which triggers the body to store more fat, mostly in the belly area. Insulin resistance is, on each and every one of your cells, there are receptors and transporters that capture and pass specific items from the bloodstream through the membrane of the cell to the inside of the cell so that it can be modified, stored, and utilized. Well, the insulin receptors, if they are defective because of fatty liver usually and excess body fat in the center, then those insulin receptors will not work properly. The cells will not take up the glucose the way they're supposed to, so the glucose remains in the bloodstream. That means that your excess glucose in that bloodstream is going to have to be removed quickly, hopefully, so that it won't cause additional damage. So your excess insulin is produced and circulated, and along with the liver, those two will convert that excess glucose into triglycerides, put them into the bloodstream, and those are going to be converted and stored as fat in your fat cells, and some of it as LDL cholesterol. So the abdominal fat is particularly dangerous because it increases the production of those very dangerous cytokines. The cytokines in turn increase the risk of heart disease, and the belly fat also increases the risk of developing cancer. You can see there's nothing good about any of this. So inflammation also interferes with your body's response to leptin. Now, leptin is a hormone that's produced in every one of your fat cells. The more fat you have, the more leptin is produced. That hormone then tells the brain when you've had enough to eat, and so you will not be prodded by your hypothalamus, your control room, to eat more. But leptin also tells the brain how much fat you have stored. So if you have leptin resistance, which you usually do when you have insulin resistance, then the brain does not get that message. And so the brain, the hypothalamus, your little control room, is going to drive you to eat more and more of the wrong kinds of things, so that it will not only increase the amount of fat, but it will also satisfy this need. So leptin resistance is a major driver for weight gain. So anything that causes cellular damage or malfunction can trigger an inflammatory response inside of your body. So cellular damage can be caused by a number of factors, including exposure to toxins, poor nutrition, and bacterial imbalances in the gut. Remember that the exposure to toxins comes from leaky gut and also from leaky lymph. You have a lymph system, which is your third vascular system. And when that is not properly fed and maintained, when the integrity of those vessels is lost because of low production of nitric oxide primarily, then those lymph vessels will start to leak, sort of like a soaker hose in your garden. And so every time the pumping action tries to move up to 5 gallons of very foul fluids from all through your body up to be cleansed and processed and recycled, it's going to leak out through those vessels into the tissues that surround it. And that is going to be just like the leaky gut. All of that putrefied fluid is going to be picked up by the bloodstream, and it's going to be distributed throughout the body. And that, in turn, is going to cause a massive amount of inflammation. So that, too, is something that you'll need to focus on repairing, and that'll be covered in other videos. So the most common causes of inflammation can be leaky gut and leaky lymph, or lymphedema, but it can also be caused by chronic stress, which causes elevated levels of cortisol, and it increases abdominal fat. Cortisol causes lots of glucose to be released into the bloodstream. Chemical exposure from processed foods and your environment can be from the food additives in that processed food. It can be from pesticides on even fresh food, that if you don't wash it very thoroughly, you can ingest it. And environmental pollution is also a very major cause of inflammation. Skincare products and cosmetics are some of the worst. They're totally loaded with chemicals. And of course, since it's applied to the skin primarily, it's very quickly and very easily absorbed right into the bloodstream. And so all types of cosmetics and skincare products, if they're not of a healthy type, if they're not of a environmentally friendly type, then more than likely they are going to cause massive amounts of inflammation. Nutritional deficiencies are another. Smoking is another. Nutritional deficiencies, especially in vitamin D, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12, are going to be particularly problematic for anyone that's trying to resolve inflammatory issues. Excess belly fat increases inflammation. So the more fat you have, the more it's going to promote new fat. So it's going to be very important that you eliminate a lot of that belly fat, to diet and break it down and get rid of it. It's going to stress the body, and it's going to cause additional cellular damage. So the inflammation markers for chronic inflammation are not always obvious, because inflammation is deep inside your body in the tissues, and you don't even know that it's going on. The symptoms, when they are available and present, are excess abdominal fat. So that is one symptom that you can't avoid. If you have belly fat, if your waist measurement is larger than your hip measurement, then you have inflammation going on inside. Excess abdominal fat, fatigue, mouth sores, skin issues, brain fog, and joint pain are the most common indicators that you have a lot of inflammation going on inside. So the inflammatory markers can be measured with a blood test. And if your doctor is willing to work with you, he can actually order that blood test. And that blood test looks for c-reactive proteins. That's a substance that's produced by your liver in response to inflammation. So if you have inflammation going on, those c-reactive proteins are going to be present and measurable in your blood. So men with high levels of CRP usually have double the risk of a stroke and 3 times the risk of a heart attack compared to men with little or no inflammation at all. So now proceed to lesson number 5. It's the final video in the series. You're going to learn how to treat inflammation. So thank you for watching this video, and please pay it forward. Share what you learn with those that can make use of it. Thank you.